Hi everyone, in this video we are going to discuss the negative aspects of coal. So we really can break these drawbacks into two different sections. It's either how you obtain the coal, so the mining aspect of it and what happens to the leftover mines, or how you burn the coal, so what happens after the combustion of the coal. So let's start off with the obtaining the coal first. So we are discussing negatives, and we're starting off with the obvious, maybe, coal mining. Coal mining is nasty business. In the U.S. alone, since the 1900s, we have had more than 100,000 deaths just related to coal mining. So that could happen between a cave-in or maybe there's a fire, but that is just what happens if you die. There are other horribly adverse health effects that happen from being in a coal mine. You can be inhaling poisonous gases all the time, so most of the time these miners end up with terrible respiratory problems after they're done working in these coal mines. It's really not very good or fair to these workers either. Number two, another negative part of coal is the environmental harm. And so this mainly has to do with water, because a lot of these abandoned coal mines will often either have a leak and the groundwater will get in, or they actually just flood and fill with groundwater, which is very, very problematic because there are A, tons of poisonous gases down there, but B, they are very sulfur rich. And so what happens is the sulfur and other containing compounds would dissolve into this water, and then we have two problems. One, we as humans cannot drink that water at all. If we drink it, we're going to be in serious trouble. But two, fish cannot live in there anymore. So we're killing different species of fish, and we're also making it so that our freshwater supply is contaminated. So it's a big problem. A little piece I want to add on to that is there's something called mountaintop mining, and so this is primarily something that happens in West Virginia and Kentucky, but essentially what they do is they clear the top of the mountain top and then they blow it up, and so they blow the top of the mountain off, exposing all of this coal, and they're able to mine it, which is a little bit healthier for the people, but it's way worse to the environment, because when you blow the top of a mountain off, all that debris goes somewhere, so it goes into the atmosphere, but a lot of that rubble actually finds itself in streams, and we've flooded streams with the rubble so much that we do not have streams anymore. We've actually eliminated streams and places where fresh water supply can go, so it's a big problem. All right, that is what just is negative about obtaining the coal. Once we have the coal and we burn it, there are two other big problems. So let's look at the first thing. This is considered a dirty combustion, okay? It's very, very dirty. It's a big problem, especially in cities that have these power plants, because we are constantly releasing soot into the atmosphere. So the soot will cover buildings, but it will also get into your lungs. So just by being a human that lives near the combustion of coal, you're putting yourself at risk by dirtying your lungs. It's bad. Also, we are constantly releasing mercury out into the atmosphere. In the U.S. alone, so this is just a U.S. statistic, we have an estimate 48 metric tons of mercury being released into our environment per year, which is awful. That's really bad. We do not want mercury poisoning, and it's really sad that we're doing it just from the burning of coal. The last thing I want to talk about is leftover ash. And so we actually leave this hazardous material there after you burn the coal. There's ash left over. And so let me show you a picture of what happens when this ash builds up, and we call it sludge, and it actually rolls out of wherever it is, or moves out of the plant. So this is a picture of somewhere in Tennessee. And this is in December of 2008. And so what we can see is all of this is coal sludge. So everywhere around this picture, we have awful coal sludge, and it buried these homes in the coal sludge. So not only is it just bad sitting there, when it gets enough momentum, it can roll away and flood areas and bury homes in coal sludge, which is not fair to anybody who lives by. They're already putting their lungs at risk. Now you bury them in sludge. It's just terrible. All right, last thing, and this is something hopefully we already know, it releases tons and tons and tons of carbon dioxide upon the combustion of the coal, which is definitely a greenhouse gas. Now, we had an entire unit on greenhouse gases, so I'm not going to go into this, but I do want to review and make sure we do remember what we learned there. So, carbon dioxide absorbs something, radiation, and heats the planet, which results in the enhanced greenhouse effect, which we know is colloquially referred to as global warming. So I'm looking for a specific type of radiation, and I'm looking for the symbol or the letter or letters. I am not looking for the spelled out word. Go. All right, did we get an answer? Hopefully we did, and the answer is definitely IR radiation. So the carbon dioxide absorbs infrared radiation, and the result of that is that it heats up the planet. Okay, so we have these 4 big problems with coal. Is there anything we can do to circumvent that, or maybe do something to be a little bit better for our environment? And the answer is kind of. We have 3 main sections we talk about when we try to talk about clean coal technology. All right, clean coal technology. There's 3 different pieces. The first one's kind of fun. It is called coal washing, and it is exactly like what it sounds like. You take a piece of coal, you wash it, and you essentially try to do everything you can to remove any sulfur-containing compounds. So you wash the coal, then you throw it into the fire, you do your combustion reaction, and you try to convert that potential energy to electrical energy. All right, number 2. Second thing we do is gasification. Gasification is probably my favorite one just because it's more chemistry-like. And so essentially what you do is you take advantage of the fact that coal is made up of a number of different atoms. So if you take coal and you vaporize it, you can convert it to carbon monoxide and hydrogen gas. Now, both of these are gases. Now, hydrogen is extraordinarily flammable. So you put a little spark near the hydrogen gas and boosh, you're going to have this huge explosion, which is awesome because then you can actually grab that energy that's evolved and use that energy to then convert it to electrical energy. The big problem with this is that carbon monoxide is really bad for us and will actually kill us. So even though this is a great way to try to avoid some of these pollutants, we are now introducing carbon monoxide, and whenever we use carbon monoxide, everything is just a little bit more dangerous. One thing I want to point out with this though is that using this technique, we can actually reduce our NOx emissions. And so that's actually quite an advantage of using this process. All right, the last one we talk about is really unique. It's a little bit of a different one, so you're going to have to kind of hold on while I explain this one. And it is called wet scrubbing. So wet scrubbing is really cool. Essentially what you do is you take coal at the bottom. Okay, so here's your coal. You're burning it. Now, coal is going to release a ton of different, or the combustion of coal is going to release a ton of different gases or emissions that are going to come out the top. They are all funneled in this giant smokestack. Now, this smokestack has something called a wet scrubber inside of it. So coal's burning, gases go up, they interact with a wet scrubber, and then they go out into the atmosphere. Within the wet scrubber, it is wet. Okay, so it's liquid, so it's water, and essentially what it does is it forces all these gases to go through this wet scrubber, and using limestone they're able to remove a number of different pollutants, specifically SO2. So they remove these pollutants and then it moves out, the rest of the gases move out and they go out into the atmosphere. So you're able to kind of selectively pull out these negative pieces. So these are great options. Coal washing is great, gasification is awesome, wet scrubbing is really unique and I love the technology behind it. But the problem is this: none of these address greenhouse gases. And greenhouse gases are our biggest problem. We are very, very concerned with the concentration of our carbon dioxide in our planet because we know as the carbon dioxide concentration is increasing, we are definitely seeing an increase of our average global temperature. So it's a big problem. But here's even bigger problem. We as Americans or United States citizens, we are held accountable for the second most amount of coal consumption, but we can barely even compete with China. China consumes more coal, way more coal. In fact, let's look at a graph of this. So here's the bottom, we're at years. So we're starting at about 1990, and then on our y-axis, we're actually just talking about coal consumption. So there's 2 things I want to point out. This green section, this giant green section, this is China. Okay, China consumes the most amount of coal out of everybody on this planet. We, the United States, are at this very bottom. We are definitely number 2. We consume the second most amount, but we can't compete with China at all. So even if we do all 3 of those techniques, so our wet scrubbing, our gasification, or even our coal washing, it is like throwing a pebble at the Hulk, okay? It might slow something down just a little bit, but the Hulk is still going to attack you and still get through. So we need to do something to fix this. We need to encourage other countries to try to do things a little bit better for themselves as well. Or probably the best option is to abandon coal completely and come up with a new form of a renewable source of energy. Bye guys, drink water.